you have questions about bookkeeping. Entrepreneur, in fact, you have questions about bookkeeping, but you've always been afraid to ask them. Well, here we're going to tackle the bookkeeping 101 for the really the entry-level entrepreneur, or the entrepreneur who's been around for a long time, who really has been afraid to ask, what is bookkeeping and how should I keep my books, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking to none other than Jackie, the bookkeeper to the stars. What's up, Jackie?
Hi, how are you?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Mainly because there's going to be a bunch of people out there who really have been afraid to ask questions about bookkeeping because they've been in business for a long time, or they're brand new and they need help with respect to their bookkeeping. So we're going to go over it right now. We're going to take 20 minutes, a half an hour, kind of going over some, the basics, so people out there can really get their business the way they should have them running, and that's with good, clean, efficient books. Sound good?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So me as a business owner, let's say I'm brand new. Like, I just opened my LLC today. What should I do with my books?
One of the easiest things to do is to open a QuickBooks Online account, because that gives you access to pretty much everything, and it allows bookkeepers to get access into it really quick, and it's a really good tool to keep everything organized.
So okay, go a little bit more in depth. What do you mean?
Well, literally everything you do in and out of your business, whether it's buying supplies, whether it's you're selling product, no matter what it is, you have to keep track of it. And QuickBooks allows you to keep it all in one place. You can connect your bank account to it, and then you can categorize all your transactions so that they're put in the right places. It's a very good tool to keep everything together.
Okay. So how much would in general? How much is QuickBooks?
Um, Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you because they have changed prices. But I
It
want
doesn't matter. I was
to.
just wondering. Okay, I get it. So okay, now let's just say again, I'm a brand new business owner.
Mhm.
I've gotten QuickBooks, and now I've bought. Let's just say I bought 10 different things for my business. Now, I think categorizing them is very, very important. How does that work? I'll always get calls about that. So I want to pick your brain on that. How does that work? How does the categorization of the different expenses work?
There are a lot of them already set up in QuickBooks, so you could just use the generic ones, or if you have specific ones you want certain ways, you could create new ones. But it allows you to have an easy workflow with it, so that when it comes to year end and you have taxes, your accountant can ask easy questions and you'll have it right there in front of you. The categorization is a huge thing to make sure that everything is labeled properly.
Plus, it's important because I want to know when I'm spending money on something, if how my rate of return is. The only way
Yep,
of doing that is if I have clean books. If they're well categorized, then I can figure out if I'm spending them in the right place, the wrong place, and see what my overall rate of return is for that investment. And that's
absolutely.
all I am as an entrepreneur. I'm an investor, and I just am investing in building widgets
Hmm.
specifically for my business. And if it's not categorized correctly, I won't know if I'm doing a good job in what
Right,
I've just invested in.
right.
Yeah. Well, I know here at vastsolutionsgroup.com, we're very, very big on well, prognosticating your taxes, and cash flow with respect to bookkeeping is important. So, do a lot of, maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but do a lot of bookkeepers set up clients with their books in a way that they can prognosticate cash flow? I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you get
It
what I'm trying to say there?
is entirely up to the bookkeeper if they do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I have seen more than not that is how it happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because for us as tax providers and really tax strategists, we try to lower the tax liability by
Yep,
making sure clients are, watching their taxes, watching their cash flow to prognosticate whatever the tax liability could be, and try to put
yep,
things in place to lower the taxes as relates to that.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's to the basics. So let's just say now I've got two businesses, I've branched off. We have a lot of people who have two businesses. One, let's say, as a I don't know, real estate agent, and another as a real estate investor.
Mhm.
So should I have two sets of accounts with at QuickBooks as an example?
Yes, absolutely. It gets way too messy to have them in the same.
hmm So likewise, so what you're saying is I'll have one LLC for, in my example, for the real estate
Yep.
agent side, and one LLC also for the real estate investor side.
Yes, absolutely.
And then also I will have a credit card with for one and another credit card for the other. And then at the end of the day, that could also help me with my books and tracking them, correct?
Yes. Yeah, your bank accounts and your credit cards, you definitely want to keep them separate with whichever company they are part of.
Mm. And then again, I'm thinking 101, bookkeeping 101. Let's say, as an example, I mess up. I'm doing my own books, and all of a sudden it gets a little crazy. It's still my first year, but I don't know what's going on. Are there groups or basically people like you who could come in and help clean those up, or at least get for a good foundation after I've already messed them up, even though it's early on in the process?
Yes, cleanups are very common just because not everybody does understand the bookkeeping aspect. So they can get messy sometimes. So, yeah, cleanups are definitely a big thing.
Okay. Okay. So likewise, then now let's say I'm still within my first year. Now you've come in, or whomever's come in and clean up my books. Um, Now what? So what could take me to the next step as far as bookkeeping? Again, so let's say I'm 9 months in. I've cleaned books. I've done a pretty good job now that you're helping me or someone's helping me. I'm still now going back to doing my own. What else should I think about as far as my books now that I'm in my, let's say, my ninth month of business?
Um, the biggest thing is just if deciding whether you're going to continue doing them or if you're going to pay a bookkeeper going forward to do them monthly to keep them nice and pretty.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big decision that a lot of people can sometimes struggle with because they don't want to necessarily pay for the monthly, but then it comes down to, do you want to mess in another 9 months or do you want to keep them flowing properly?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think some people forget about the fact that, in my example, I said I do two things. I'm a real estate agent and I'm also a real estate investor. I'm probably pretty good, pretty good real estate agent and a pretty good investor. I'm probably not a good bookkeeper per se. And plus, I want to get even better at being a real estate agent and being a good real estate agent and also being a good investor. So I shouldn't spend time also with my books. But I think it makes sense to at least learn about the books. But yeah, I totally hear what you're saying because I think you're right.
I agree that it doesn't hurt to have a general understanding of your books, but at the same point, if you're not that's not your priority when you have other businesses, you want to focus on your real estate businesses and improving those and not worry so much about the back end bookkeeping aspect of it.
Okay, so I get it. So let's say now we're a year down the road.
Mhm.
Okay, now what is it that a bookkeeper can do or that I can do to make for an easy transition to my CPA or my tax provider to do my taxes? So what do I need to provide to the tax professional that would make their job easy and also help me lower taxes if I'm giving them clean books, as an example?
Um, the financial statements, if everything is cleaned up, you can just easily run financial reports for whatever time period you want. It's usually a whole year, and that is very simple to just send them over to your tax preparer.
So would you say I should look then? It's been a year in my pretend world. It's been about a year, right? Should
Mhm.
I make sure that on a monthly basis I look at my books as if I'm doing my own books or if someone else is doing my books?
That is a very good suggestion.
Yeah.
Many people don't, but it is definitely a benefit so that if something looks wrong or looks off, you can fix it quickly while all of the transactions are fresh in your mind.
hmm Okay, so that's helpful. So once a month, do a kind of a quick review, I guess. Whatever. Once
Yep.
every 3 months, do a deep dive, and every year do a real deep dive. Basically,
Yep.
almost. as far as a almost like you're meeting with a board of directors. I mean, no, I'll back up. This is what I do. On an annual basis, I look at my books and I pretend that I'm reporting to a board of directors, even if I'm not, just so
Hmm.
I can see where we are. I could see if I've done a good job over the last year and what I need to do to make it better the next year.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think that makes a lot of sense. Even if you're, sole proprietor, whatever the case is, at least you're preparing yourself. And if you've got clean books, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to look at the year and see how your investments have panned out over the year. If they've done poorly, you got to change some stuff. If you've done well, oh, okay. Well, what can I do to improve upon what I've already done that's been
Yep.
going well?
Absolutely. That is exactly the point of it.
Okay. All right, so let's say I'm a year in. So far my books they're great. Let's just say again, using my example, I started it myself in year whatever. In month 9. I messed up. I needed some help, but now my business is starting to mature. I'm starting to really crush it. Right?
Hmm.
What then? So let's say I want to bring on let's say a beginning bookkeeper. What are some of the things I should look for in a bookkeeper to make sure that they're the right fit for my books or my organization?
A lot of that depends on what the bookkeeper is used to, like what, like say you're real estate. Oh, so a lot of people like to stay in their certain niche and work with that. So that is a huge thing, is to not pick somebody that has never worked with your specific kind of books, because for the most part in a niche they are very similar, so you get used to certain companies, certain transactions, and it makes the workflow a lot faster if they already know what should and shouldn't be happening with your books.
Mm, that makes sense because I've got it. There's got to be a fit. They've got to have a
Yep.
circle of knowledge around my specific niche. Let's say it's real
Absolutely.
estate. Let's say I'm a good plumber or whatever the case is.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay, I
that's
love that.
that's a huge thing.
Yep. What about this? Is a weird no put down on bookkeepers. What about sometimes some people say some bookkeepers aren't the most personable? Don't take that as an offense because you are way personable. Um, because I think there's also got to be a fit personality wise.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
Now, how do I ferret that out? Because is there a way to have a bookkeeper do a couple of projects for me just to see if there's a fit, see if there's a
Yeah.
personality fit? Is that possible?
Yes, especially with QuickBooks, you can give them access and they can like run through it. And at the same point, if you start with somebody and then find out you don't necessarily like them, you can technically fire them and just continue your search and find somebody that is a better fit. So it's it's both ways. So sometimes the customers cannot be a good fit, and then sometimes the bookkeeper cannot be a good fit. So it's very important to try and find a good match between the two.
Got it. I love this. I think this has been a real good, solid session for entrepreneurs who are really just trying to get up and going, or just trying to learn about bookkeeping, or again, or someone who's even a senior person. Because I think this would be helpful. By the way, you are Jackie Clark. You're with vastsolutionsgroup.com. Someone to get a hold of you would, I think, email jrc@vastsolutionsgroup.com. Correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right. So, all right, we're past the year point. Let's just say I'm an entrepreneur, and I've hired a bookkeeper. Now, I've hired a bookkeeper. He or she is great, and I said there were going to be a new bookkeeper. But now, let's say we're 5 years down the road. What are some things I should think about with respect to my books? Now, I'm a viable company, and maybe even starting to think, not yet, but maybe starting to think about selling my business, right? But
Hmm.
what else should be occurring with my books in year 5 now that I'm a mature company and I'm even kind of thinking about potentially selling my business?
The biggest thing with selling your business is, even I suggest with something like that, even though you have had a bookkeeper, it doesn't hurt to get a second set of eyes in there to make sure that everything is right for a seller's aspect. Because sometimes things can be overlooked, or the bookkeeper gets comfortable with things and it may not be put in the right place, with something like that, like I said, it doesn't hurt to sometimes get a second set of eyes in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I think especially sometimes even going to a bookkeeper who has helped with transition selling businesses before, I think that helps. And I think
Yep.
also sometimes tandemizing with accountants or CPAs who've done the same, I think also helps. And luckily, we at vastsolutionsgroup.com have been involved in that. We're involved in a
Yep.
number of business transitions right now. We have a lot of those. Okay, so I get it. So then let's say all of a sudden year 7 comes. My bookkeeper is the same bookkeeper that I hired, let's just say, and we've done a horrible job. Now we're going a little bit further up the spectrum. We've gone we've gone and done a horrible job. Now
Mhm.
I need the help of, let's say, a bookkeeper like you. What are some of the things I have to think about when trying to clean up my books if my books are completely horrible?
The biggest issue with that is if your taxes have ever already been filed, you either have to decide about amending it,
Mm-hmm.
or, well, if they're that horrible, you're going to have to amend no matter what. But
Yep.
you definitely have to get somebody else in there to work with your tax professional and to fix what was messed up. And there's definitely going to be an amendment if it's a horrible case.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just in my example because I think we take over at vastsolutionsgroup.com a lot of books that are kind of a mess, and so that's
Mm-hmm.
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, well, as an entrepreneur, well, okay, then are there sometimes big penalties um, because my taxes are wrong, because my books are wrong, versus having them clean, etc.
It could go either way depending on how wrong they are. There could be huge penalties and more taxes needing to be paid, or you could be getting something back if the income was severely off.
Yeah.
It can go either way, but there will be fees associated with it no matter what.
Yeah, what I would say is sometimes I think we're pretty lucky, and sometimes we'll find when we go back looking at books, or maybe, or even our CPA, he'll go back and be able to find some situations where people have overpaid their taxes. I'm
Yes.
not
Yep.
saying really with respect to books, but sometimes that's the case, and it's actually a good thing to have someone come in and clean up the books or clean
Yep.
up the taxes, because there can be some tax savings. I mean, we just did one as a reminder. We just did one for a client in I think it was in Oregon, where he was way overpaying his taxes. There was some stuff he didn't know that he should have done. His CPA didn't know that he should have done. It he ended up getting a refund, and he was pretty
Yep.
darn happy.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely, a cleanup can go either way.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so now let's say we've cleaned the books up,
Hmm.
and now for sure, let's say now we're in year 15. Now we're talking to the senior people out there. Most of our people are pretty senior, and they are year 15. Their books are just so okay. But now they're for sure trying to sell their business. Let's just say to a rent, through a broker. Let's just say. Now, what are the even more key considerations now that they're a big senior company and they're really, going to sell it to a big conglomerate, let's say real estate company? Then what are the bigger considerations? Because I think there's bigger considerations in year 15 than there are in year, whatever I said, year 5. Then what are your thoughts?
It's just making sure that, especially if you're selling, that you have all your documentation so that you can prove everything that's on your books.
Yeah.
That's that's something that you should be doing all the time anyways, but especially if you're going to have a sale, you want any real estate you have. You want all your paperwork for that. And it doesn't have to be the physical papers. Everything's online now. So you can just upload everything now. But you want to make sure you can verify everything you're telling the seller you have.
Yeah, I'll go with an analogy. So I'm wearing what I consider a pretty cool watch, an Omega. If I
Yep.
sold this, let's say it's in pretty good shape, right? If I want to sell the Omega, I don't even know what it's worth. Let's just say it's $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Making it up, I don't know what it's worth. But if I have all my papers and they're in good working order, when I bought the watch,
Mm-hmm.
it would be worth a lot more money. And I think that's the analogy for books. If you have good books, good documentation in order, you will be able to sell your company for a little bit more. If you could trace everything back to the source, and I think that's really where bookkeepers add value in a transaction, they can sell the business for that much more. And I think
Absolutely.
that's the advantage. If I want to sell my business for, making up a number, $5 million, great. But if I want to get as much value as I can, and I've done a good job all the way along the line, sure, there's some cost, but if it brings me in now, whatever, $7 million, and that my only cost has been for bookkeeping fees, let's say 30,000, it's more than worth it to have clean books and
Yep.
be able to sell the business for much more than I would have otherwise.
Absolutely.
What's
Yeah.
crazy, in my opinion, what's crazy is, and by the way, again, my name is Kenneth French with VastSolutionsGroup.com. I think people forget about the fact that if you're going to buy something and if things are clean, you're going to pay more for it versus if you're going to buy something and it's dirty, if you will, dirty, it's a mess, you're not going to pay
Yep.
as much. Plus, going forward, you're not going to make as much.
Right.
So that's a big, big reason I think people should look at, having clean books right off the bat. And
Yep.
I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. If someone is brand new at their business and they have a good set of books, at least traditionally starting a good set of books, and then they build upon it, like building a house with a good foundation, you'll be much better off during the year, at the end of the year, and at the end of the sale, if that all makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's huge to keep track of everything. It's very, very important when you're a business owner.
So, okay, so now that we're getting close to finishing up, so what are some things, again, this is Bookkeeping 101. Again, I think this has been a great, great session for anyone who's a, brand new entrepreneur all the way to ones down the road. But what's something that we had not talked about that you think an entrepreneur, either again, a brand new entrepreneur or a senior level entrepreneur, should be thinking about with respect to their books that we haven't already covered?
When you're first starting out, there's so many things that you have to think about, but one of them is like your bank accounts, your credit cards, all of that. If you're with real estate, if you are purchasing properties, just having everything in line. Like, um, you're making me think on this one.
Jackie, bookkeeper to the stars. I'm making her think.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking outside of that, it just doesn't always work.
I've got one. Hey, I'm going to throw this out. Can I throw one? I'm going to throw a couple things out because we haven't
Okay.
even talked about. I think if you have clean books,
Hmm.
you potentially could really be helping yourself as far as asset protection goes. So
Oh
here's an
yeah.
example. Let's say you own. I use the example of before me being a real estate agent and also an investor. Let's say, as an example, I'm a real estate investor. I've got a whole bunch of properties. No, let's just say one property, and all of a sudden someone slips and falls in that one property. Okay,
Hmm.
and let's say that one property is worth $1 million, right? Let's just pretend it's in a cool area, right? Right? They slip and fall, and then all of a sudden they say, "Huh?" Their attorney's like, "Huh? We want more than $1 million. We want to go after all this guy's assets." So what they do is they look at they pierce the corporate veil. If I haven't done a good job of my books, and I've been moving my money around basically like an alter ego, like it's not a clear delineation between all my entities, in this case two entities and myself because I'm just an
Hmm.
entity. Someone could therefore, in that case, the person who's slipped and fall, they could sue me for a lot more than the $1 million. They could sue me for all that I have in my real estate agents
Yes.
LLC, and also potentially, if I've done a really bad job in my books, they can sue me individually. So
Yep.
maybe they could go after, instead of $1 million, they can go after $5 million. Now, the bigger issue there is I've spent my whole life, my entire life, working hard for me individually, me in my real estate agent LLC, and then also obviously in the LLC where there was a slip and fall. So they can go after everything. So
Hmm.
that's, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest reasons to have a good bookkeeper or have good books, because you don't want to have what they call piercing the corporate veil occur.
Yep.
So meaning you want to have a rock solid wall between all your different entities, and with good books that will allow you to do that. And that's why I think there's a lot of value that can be had with having a good bookkeeper, or at least um, understanding some of the basic premises with respect to bookkeeping. Hence the reason we're doing Bookkeeping 101.
Yep. Yeah, that is a big thing also. That you definitely the main reason you want to keep everything separate between your businesses, because the more separate it is, the less likely they can pierce the corporate veil, which is a huge, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's what we could say. That, which reminds me. Now we're kind of delving into asset protection. We
Yeah.
here at vastsolutionsgroup.com, luckily we've joined vastassetdefense.com, which now there's a one-stop shopping service, if you will, for someone who's looking for tax, finance, artificial intelligence, also asset protection, estate planning.
Yeah.
And if people want any information on that, on asset protection, we have basically the godfather of asset protection, who runs that entity, and his name's Bob Bloom, and we're more than happy to make an introduction. He, as a matter of fact, because everyone stayed for this long of time, we've been here for about a half an hour, for 25 minutes. Anyone who is interested in half an hour consultation with Bob himself, Bob Bloom, again, the godfather of asset protection, email info@vastsolutionsgroup.com, info@vastsolutionsgroup.com. We will send you out a questionnaire. That questionnaire will provide some information to Bob, and then he will sit with you via Google Meet or whatever the case is for a half an hour going over your estate plan. He's doing that as a service to us here at vastsolutionsgroup.com, which now we are a vastassetdefense.com company. Also, by the way, since we're here, anyone who's listening to this, here you're listening, so you can't see this. My book, I'm holding up, The Entrepreneur's Manifesto, a collection of smart financial advice. Also, email info@vastsolutionsgroup.com. You will get a copy. We will send that out to you post haste. I'll read a couple of things that are in the book. Potential IRS red flags for entrepreneurs, IRA withdrawal lessons, ideas about health savings accounts, 10 bad money mistakes to avoid. So there's a number of things that are added value that can help the entrepreneur, either if you're a brand new entrepreneur all the way to an entrepreneur who's been around for many years. Just as like we've been talking about Bookkeeping 101, that would help you as an entrepreneur. If you're a brand new bookkeeper or a brand new entrepreneur all the way to an entrepreneur who's been around for many, many years, this book will help you, just like Bob would be able to help you with your asset protection plan. So any last minute comments you want to make, Jackie, about yourself, about bookkeeping, about how much fun you're having doing bookkeeping or whatever the case would be?
I do have fun doing bookkeeping. I know that is so weird to hear, but I do.
It's funny. I made that comment about bookkeepers, kind of be nerdy or whatever I said,
Yeah.
but clearly you're awesome and it's fun working with you. And I can say, if anyone's worried about working with a bookkeeper because they're a little too much into numbers, Jackie is a normal lady. She's a fun lady. We've known her, for a while now, and she can add value. I honestly can say she can add value. She knows what she's doing. She's not going to be one of those passive bookkeepers not adding value as far as bookkeeping goes. She will add value to you, the entrepreneur. Either, again, if you're a brand new entrepreneur all the way to someone who's been around for whatever 20 years, she can add value to you.
Well, thank you for that.
You really are awesome. I'm very glad to have you part of vastsolutionsgroup.com. I'm not sure what I would do without you. You've been
Thank you.
good lady to work with. There's no doubt. So everyone out there, once again, email us, info@vastsolutionsgroup.com. You can get a copy of the book, get 30-minute asset protection consultation. We're with vastsolutionsgroup.com. As I mentioned, luckily now a member of vastassetdefense.com, the network of companies that's here to help you. And specifically what we do in that company, we do tax, finance, artificial intelligence, or business automation. And then also now we have asset protection and also estate planning to help you pass money to your heirs in an efficient, hopefully tax-free basis if possible, right? Anyway, once again, this is Kenneth French. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Dude, thanks.